Hello again, ladies and gents, how are you doing? Today's story took a little bit of digging, because they didn't want to put this anywhere near the BBC homepage, did they? 7 men jailed for abusing girls. Now I know what you're thinking. The BBC didn't put it on the homepage because that's what the BBC do. They abuse little kids. Everyone knows that. You could be talking about the big statue of the galloping nonce on the front of the building at Broadcasting House. Or you could be talking about Jimmy Savile or Hugh Edwards or any of the dozens of famed BBC reporters and journalists and stars that take great pleasure from stuffing an 8-year-old in the boot of the car, driving them to a secluded area and then rogering them like a copper's radio. You could be thinking that, but that's not why they didn't want to tell anyone about this story. They didn't want to tell anyone about this story because the gentlemen involved have a certain... like a look about them. A sort of swarthy complexion, you know. They're not handsome, blue-eyed fellas with alabaster skin like the Bootneck. No, they're a little bit dusky, shall we say. I'll give you another clue. Almost all of them have a first name that begins with the letter M. Okay, let's get into this one. I was playing delaying tactics there because A, I don't want to use any of the names because social media doesn't like that word, and B, trying to keep them off camera for a little bit. But you've waited long enough. Let's get into it and combine my signature newsreading style, which artfully combines gallows humour with towering fury. 7 men jailed for abusing girls, tucked neatly away on the regional page of the BBC website. And there they all are. Well, blow me down with a feather. Twist my nipples and call me Frank. I never saw that coming, did you? From top left, more. I'll tell you what, for the purposes of avoiding the withering glare of the people that run this platform and my own ease of use, because, you know, I'm an Englishman, I trip over all of those funny-sounding names, we'll just call them all, I'll anglicise them, shall I? Here we go, from top left, Dave, Paul, Roger, Alan, Dave, and Dave. And if you're under any illusions, yes, Alan does own a snack bar. Anyway, these fine upstanding English gentlemen were all jailed at Sheffield Crown Court on Thursday and Friday last week. The National Crime Agency said the victims were aged 11 and 15. They almost got started late. Knowing what these boys get up to, they almost got started late there. Very decent of them. When the offending began, and both had spent time in the care system during the offending period. Of course they did, because they target them on purpose, because they're beyond detestable. Of course they did. They never go after middle class and upper class kids, do they? That's why, funny old thing, all of the politicians are happy to turn a blind eye to it when children are getting tortured, rogered, and in some cases killed, and they don't care because it's not their kids that are getting left with a severe limp, is it? The case was part of Operation Stovewood, set up after the J report found at least 1,400 girls were abused, trafficked and groomed by gangs of men in Rotherham between 1997 and 2013. CBS solicitor Zoe Becker said the men had deliberately preyed on 2 young girls they knew were vulnerable and used drugs and alcohol to exploit them for their own sexual gratification. The offences were committed between April 2003 and April 2008. So it's only coming out because of all the scandals. They covered up for them. Keir Starmer covered up for them. And the College of Policing covered up for them. And the judges covered up for them. And the councillors and the great and the good and the BBC journalists and Channel 4 and Sky News and every single one of them helped cover up for them. You know it, I know it, and the family dog knows it at this point. Everybody knows it, but apparently nobody cares. This should be a national scandal. Dozens of people should be getting jailed for this, and I'm not just talking about the fellas that are playing hide the sausage with 10-year-olds. They want worse than jailing. But, you know, only 74% of the UK supports capital punishment, so we can't have that. You know, we do live in a democracy, but you just can't have any of the things that the majority of people want. Yeah? Easy. It makes loads of sense, doesn't it? The trial heard the defendants had regularly picked up the victims, often from the children's homes where they lived, in their cars and gave them cigarettes, alcohol, cannabis and money. Is that not illegal either? Is that not illegal? Well, why isn't that illegal? I'm pretty sure if I rocked up to my local primary school and was like, all right, lads, anyone fancy a G&T? All right, Tommy, Benson and Edges is your grandson, isn't it? Hang on. There you go. Let me get that for you. Pretty sure I'd go to jail. Is that not a chargeable offence as well? They should be jailing them the second they offer them a tab, let alone offer them the opportunity to hum the national anthem with the bowels in the mouth. You don't even need to be waiting for them to assault them, surely. But I guess if you look a certain way, it's not illegal, because that's the way the law works in the UK in 2024. Well, since about 1990, apparently. The girls would then be assaulted, forced to perform sex acts, and subjected to a little bit of surprise sex. Because, yeah, they don't like that word on here either, do they? The court heard how the attacks took place at locations around Rotherham, including a car park, in a car in a supermarket car park, in a cemetery, and behind a children's nursery. And there are stories out there, as I've told you many times before. There's accounts in Easy Meat where a bobby drove into a church car park, looked through a car window, and seen a child performing a sex act on a grown man, and his mate was sat in the passenger seat watching. And when the copper said, "What's going on here, lads?" one of them turned to the copper and laughed and said, "Ha ha, she's sucking me off, mate." And the copper shook his head, got back in the car, and drove off. Right? That is what has been going on for decades in the disunited kingdom. Basically, you're living in an apartheid state, aren't you? White grannies get sent to prison for Facebook posts, and swarthy foreign chaps can force little girls to neck a couple of pints of throat yoghurt while a copper watches and nobody gets in trouble for it. So am I being hyperbolic when I call it an apartheid state? I don't think so. It's South Africa at the height of its problematic behaviour. At its worst, if you get locked in prison for posting things on social media and they get free to roam for decades while Keir Starmer is running the CPS, think about it. Even Owen Jones couldn't argue with that point, surely. Anyway, moving on. Mr. Cobb added, "What happened to them can never be undone, but I hope the sentences handed down here will at least give them a sense that their abusers have been held to account and justice has been done." Yeah, if I got tortured for 8 years while the coppers and the MPs laughed about it, I'd be buzzing that 20 years later they finally get sent to prison for a short period of time. Yeah, I'd be sat on top of a pack of frozen peas with a ring piece like the top end of a Wellington boot, going, "Oh, I'm buzzing now, nice one. Cheers then." Sending some bloke to prison for 6 years doesn't provide any succour to my ravaged shitbox, does it? What do you want me to do? Give you a medal, Mr. Cobb? You absolute chopper. And then it goes through the sentences and makes a big deal of them, like, "Oh yeah, we're doing it, we're doing you a solid here, lads." And again, these blokes are tonking 11-year-old girls and they're getting 14 years in prison, which means they'll probably do about 5, right? Because you only do 40% of your sentence now, probably 30 if you look like him and you're called Amwa. So he'll be out in 4 years. Nice one. In fact, he can probably high-five the granny who did the Facebook posts. They can leave the prison together, holding hands. Brilliant. In fact, I'm not reading that anymore. I've had enough. It's not making me feel better, it's making me feel worse. And they're only doing it because they've just spent the last 3 months locking people up for nothing. Mean tweet, locked up. Mentally ill, autistic lad who throws a bottle towards a meat wagon, locked up. OAP shouting at the police dog, locked up. That's the only reason they're locking them up now, because you all know about it. Let me just find one story. I could show you hundreds. I'll find one story of a sentencing handed out before they started locking all the natives up for being mean online. Shall I? I'll just do one. From thedailymail.com. Abuser who didn't know sleeping with a girl of 13 was illegal is spared jail. He admitted travelling to Nottingham and doing the deed, and he groomed her on Facebook. But he said it's not his fault because in the madrasa he was educated in, he was taught that women are no more worthy than a lolly that has been dropped on the ground. Fair dues. Fair dues, innit? Hang on. Don't the great and the good keep telling us that the religion of many pieces is brilliant and full of tolerance and peace and harmony? How come when it suits them, they'll happily accept that as a defence plea? Well, it's not my fault, because in the very, very religious schools, they just teach everyone that a woman is, totally worthless. It's like on Borat. My country, they teach the value is a man, a horse, a dog, a rat, a woman. Yeah, so that's from the horse's mouth. When it suits them, it's wonderful, and it teaches equality and peace and harmony. When it doesn't suit them, they will happily take as a mitigating plea from a religious scholar, oh, it's not his fault. We teach them that women are lower than a rat's knackers. Yeah, it's not his fault. He's a good lad, really. Anyway, I'm sure you've seen this story. It's quite an old one. There's a picture of him, hairy-arsed, beardy-weirdy, roaming around the nation, donkeying one into kids above greasy kebab shops, and he doesn't get in trouble for it. Just let him off with a suspended sentence and say, it's not your fault, son. You were trained the wrong way by the teacher at your local school, who usually is tolerant and progressive. Yeah, brilliant. So there's the news for the week. Happy days. I hope that cheered you up no end to know that justice is finally being done by locking up the worst people in society for about 4 years. And they'll probably get out of jail before Sam Mellier does. And obviously they're only doing it because they've spent the last 25 years ignoring it. So nice one. And as soon as this all blows over, they'll start letting them do it again with impunity. Brilliant. The system works as intended. As I keep telling you, ladies and gentlemen, all jokes aside, it doesn't. And you're living in a police state with not just a two-tier justice system. You're dealing with an aggressively tyrannical, openly racist two-tier justice system being ran by people that despise you, your wives and children, and everything you hold dear. Keir Starmer and the ratbags that Tony Blair shuffled into positions of power across the United Kingdom will wreck everything you hold dear. And I like to think that the last 3 months have proved that beyond any reasonable doubt. All right, but that's going to have to do you for the day because I've got work to do. I hope that got the rage boners stoked across the UK. And please let me know what you think in the chat. Remember, please call a medical professional for any erection lasting longer than 6 hours. Right, I don't want to be responsible for any healthcare mishaps. Although, now you live in the UK, don't you? So there's no point in phoning a healthcare professional because they'll be too busy providing cosmetic surgery to waifs and strays from the four corners of the globe who've never paid a single penny into the NHS. So don't bother ringing them. Just go on Google. They'll have some advice for you. Put an ice pack on it or smash your bell end into your desk 4 or 5 times. That might sort it out. Again, not real medical advice. I was merely making a quip. Thanks for watching, ladies and gents. See you all tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.